Hello everyone, this is Kaushik Kumar from SRIRAM Law Academy, and in this video I'm going to be telling you how you should be reading the newspaper every single day. Now I'm sure a lot of you already know that reading a newspaper is one of the most important things that you need to do every day to be able to prepare for CLAT. But some of the reasons are not as well known as the others. Now the first reason, as you all know, is definitely the fact that you need to be on top of your current affairs knowledge, and that is one of the biggest reasons why you should read the newspaper every single day, because there's some news which comes up every day which could potentially be a question for CLAT. Now, the second and third reasons are the lesser known reasons of why you should be reading the newspaper every single day. And those are to improve your reading skills and to improve your vocabulary. Now, just by reading something every single day, your ability to read passages quicker and your ability to understand complex passages quicker is improved a lot more. And just by reading good quality newspapers and good quality content, your vocabulary as well will improve over the course of time. So these are two additional skills that you are developing just by reading the newspaper every single day consistently, right? And this is something which is going to really help you in not just the current affairs sections, but also with the other sections in CLAT as well. Now, and needless to say, a lot of passages in CLAT are directly picked out of newspaper editorial columns. So this can also in a way help you in case if a passage comes up which you're already familiar with. This can really help you in being able to identify and understand what the correct answer for those questions will be, right? So there are a multitude of reasons why you should read the newspaper every single day, and all of this points to the fact that just by reading the newspaper, you're ticking off multiple tasks for your day, and you fulfill the requirements for multiple subjects for CLAT itself. So it's an essential task that you need to do every single day consistently so that you can do well in CLAT. Now, moving on to which newspaper you should read, I'm sure a lot of you would have already heard that the Hindu and Indian Express is one of the most recommended, are two of the most recommended newspapers for people who are preparing for CLAT. Now, the reason why we tell you this is not because the other newspapers do not cover the news, but the thing is, it's not just a question of what news these newspapers cover, it's also about how they cover it. So it's about the style that they use and the approach that they use in writing the content that they do. So with the Hindu and the Indian Express, we are able to trust the fact that the content that they write will not have any grammatical errors. The English that they use will be of a high standard, that it will train you in that way as well. And the way that they like cover these kinds of news also shows that it will almost always be accurate in what they are covering. So these are the reasons why we suggest and recommend that please just read the Hindu and the Indian Express as the basis uh, for your preparation for current affairs every single day, and use only these newspapers because the others are just not trustworthy enough with the language as well as the content that we are talking about, right? So the Hindu and the Indian Express are the only two options that you should be looking at. And if you're not able to get a hand of the actual physical copy, then please do make sure that you take the online copies of these as well, because those can be really helpful too. Okay. So that's which newspaper to read. Now, how much time should you normally be setting aside to read the newspaper? Now, ideally, you should be setting aside at least an hour a day to read the newspaper. Now, this would obviously depend upon your reading speed and how well and how quickly you're able to analyze things. But on average, everybody should be aiming to read the newspaper for about an hour a day. Now, an hour a day, just the newspaper might seem a little taxing, it might seem a little boring at times, but there is a way to make this very easy, and I will tell you how you can go about it, right? Now, before I get into the actual strategy on what to read and what not to read, the preparatory things that you need to do before you start reading the newspaper, if you already haven't done before, is you need to get yourself two different notebooks along with you every single day while you're reading the newspaper. Keep those two notebooks separate because each notebook has a different purpose. Now, the first notebook is about taking notes on the current affairs events that you read and you find important in the newspaper. Now, these notes are going to be helpful for you when you have to revise later on, when you have to look back at what exactly has happened through the month or through the year and identify what are the most important events that you need to remember for yourself. So these notes are going to be coming in very handy for you. And this is a separate notebook which you should maintain, which you should be filling in every single day while you're reading the newspaper. So that's the first notebook. Now, the second notebook that you need to keep is for your vocabulary. Now, If you're reading the Hindu or Indian Express, it is bound to happen that you are going to come across at least, say, 5 to 10 words every single day, which you wouldn't have come across before. So these are words which would be new to you, which you will not know the exact meaning of. You might understand the context of what these words are, but you might not understand what the exact meaning of these words are. And that is where your vocabulary skills is going to improve. So this is where your second notebook comes in, where you note down every single new word that you come across while you're reading a newspaper, highlight it in the newspaper itself, and make sure you write it down in your notebook. And along with that, look for the actual dictionary meaning and write down the dictionary meaning as well. It's right next to it. And this vocabulary book is going to be really, really helpful for you in preparing at the end when you're looking for like trying to revise your and improve your vocabulary. You can use this notebook as your revision pack and go back on it and understand the meaning. And the reason why it's really helpful to do this while you're reading a newspaper is because you're not just looking at the word and the meaning, but you're also looking at how the word has been used in a particular sentence. So that really helps you in giving an idea as to how the word should be used and and that just help you register the word a lot better in your mind rather than just looking randomly at dictionaries for like new words which you don't know, right? So these are the two notebooks that you need to have along with you while you are reading a newspaper every single day. Now, there's now, while you're reading a newspaper, there's going to be a lot of important stuff, but there's going to be a lot of unimportant stuff as well, right? And it's about being able to filter out the unimportant things and just focus on the most important things that you need to do while preparing for CLAT. Because it is very easy to get sidetracked because the newspaper itself has content worth. I know people who can sit and read the newspaper for the whole day if they had the option, because there's so much information there, there's so much to unpack there, there's so much new events that are happening, which is interesting in some ways, which are not interesting in many other ways, and you can just spend a lot of time doing that. But considering that 1 hour is the ideal time that we have set for ourselves, because there are a lot of other things that you need to be focusing on in the rest of your day as well. So considering that you just have 1 hour, you need to make the most of the time that you are spending while reading the newspaper. And that is why you need to be able to filter out the unimportant things and just focus on the important stuff, which is going to help you in cracking CLAT. Now, the important stuff that I'm talking about is obviously the editorials and the opinion columns. Now, these, and I cannot emphasize this enough, are going to be the bedrock of your current affairs preparation, is going to be the bedrock of your GK preparation and reading of your newspaper. Like, so out of the time that you do spend while reading the newspaper, majority of it is going to go towards reading the editorials and the opinion columns. And the reason why we focus on this is because these columns tend to focus on the most important events that have happened in the recent past, like the most significant events with regard to India or even in the international sphere. These are the most important events that they focus on. So these tend to give you an idea as to what exactly has happened in the recent past. And more often than not, CLAT tends to focus on these issues as well. So it's really helpful to give you, it's kind of like a guide to give you an idea as to what exactly is important today, what's important the next day, what has been happening in the last month, right? So all of this gives you an idea as to what to focus on. And the second thing that's really helpful about the editorials and the opinion columns is that these columns use the way they structure their content is that it's more like an article or an essay that you're reading rather than a news report. So you have a lot of ability to be able to read and analyze what is given there, and it helps you with your reading skills and being able to derive certain information from the passage itself, and just look at and get yourself an idea as to how potential passages could be like. So that's really helpful in just improving your reading skills as well. And normally they tend to use high level vocabulary as well, which is going to improve your vocabulary skills too. So please just make sure you read the editorial and the opinion columns regularly, right? Now, the next thing that you need to focus on while you're reading a newspaper is legal news. Now, as you're expected to be law students and you're going to be lawyers in the future, you're expected to know about a lot of legal news and anything that could potentially come up. Now, by this, I mean any new acts, any new bills that are being passed, any new acts that have been enacted, any Supreme Court decisions that have been made, any observations which have been made by the Supreme Court, any important High Court decisions as well, which have like a really big effect on the whole country, right? All of these, and like any new any new legal developments as well, any new report or any new commissions which have been formed, etc. So all of this which are related to law and legal news as such is going to be the most important aspect that CLAT is going to focus on. So this is something which automatically when you see this, you need to be able to identify it as important and make sure that you remember this. So this is another aspect that you need to look for actively in the newspaper. Now, the rest of the more important stuff, which are a little more general, is that of, say, international politics, Indian political issues, or you have any new governmental policies and schemes, etc. So all of these which have some kind of national importance, right? And all of these which have some kind of effect on how the government is functioning, on how, like, the many big issues between two countries, if there are any kind of border issues, like let's say the border issue between India and China, that will be something which could potentially come up as a question for CLAT. So all of these need to be focused on, and anything related to such huge issues will automatically become a focus point for you while preparing for CLAT. Right. Now, another thing which is definitely important, but sometimes lost focus, is that of sports. Now, a lot of people are confused that they believe that sports is not something which is important at all. It can be something which is completely ignored, which is not the case, because there have been times when there have been questions which have related to sports. Now, by sports, I mean you should be focusing upon, say, international events, international competitions, where worldwide competitions where India has done well, or where they have been conducted in India, or let's say let's say like the Olympics, or any kind of lesser known sports like badminton championships, any hockey World Cup, the Kabaddi World Cup, etc., etc. So anything which has like a worldwide impact, which is like the world level, like global competitions where India has done well, or like it's happening in India, or something related to India, that is something which you should know about with related to sports. Another thing which you can be asked about with relating to sports is that of any kind of awards or some kind of recognition that has been given to certain players, like how there could be potentially KL Ratna awards, or many sports people may have received Bharat Ratna awards, etc., etc. Right? So all of these are things which you need to keep an eye out for. So sports is not something which you can completely ignore. It's all about focusing yourself on how, on which ones and which which news to actually focus on, right? So you shouldn't try to look at, oh, how did India do against Australia in the second test of this tour? Now that's not something which CLAT is going to focus on, right? So it's going to be more about world level competitions where India has done well, or there's some kind of national recognition or national awards that have been provided. So these are some of the more important aspects that needs to be focused on while reading the newspaper. And just keep an eye out when you are scrolling through the newspaper, just keep reading a lot of it. Just think to yourself, would this, if I was a person making the question paper for CLAT, would I potentially include this as a question or not, right? So ask yourself that question and decide whether the thing would be important or unimportant. Now, the most key thing while looking at these kinds of important subjects or aspects in the news is that you need to be able to make notes effectively. And it's not just about making notes, it's about making notes effectively. So what a lot of students tend to do is that they start taking notes, and they make these notes with the intention that they essentially just copy and paste everything that is given in the article. So that's just duplicating your efforts there, because you already have the article in hand. So it's not a question of getting in every single detail that you can from the article. It's about getting a general idea as to what are the most important aspects, and writing down that, reducing that particular passage or article to, say, 2 or maximum 3 lines in your notebook, right? Because that will give you all the information that you need about who's doing it, what's happening, where they're doing it, why they're doing it, and when they're doing it. So if you're able to answer all of these questions, that should be more than enough, right? So the problem is, if you start copying and pasting everything that's inside the article and start writing it down, for one, it's used up a lot of time, and two, you are focusing on a lot of information which is absolutely unnecessary for you, right? So do not waste your time while you're making notes. Keep it as small and like crisp as possible, so that it covers all the important and key information, and then you can go ahead to the next piece of news that you're going to read. Now, those are the important things that you have to focus on. Now, coming on to the unimportant stuff. Now, unimportant stuff normally relates to, like they say, state or city news, Now, these kinds of things are normally not expected for everybody who's writing CLAT to know about. Now, let's say you are the person who's living in Delhi. Now, you cannot be expected to know about any kind of city news that's happening in, say, Chennai or Mumbai, right? So this is something which CLAT is not going to expect you to do. So this is something which you can completely ignore unless that news itself has somehow reached significant national importance, right? So unless and until something like that has happened, you can completely ignore state and city news. And then there's other news articles on lifestyle, entertainment, you have movies, right? So all of these are like more about leisurely reading and like for fun reading. So these are things which you're not going to be questioned on in CLAT by itself. So these are again unimportant topics that you can potentially go over and not waste your time while you're reading the newspaper every single day. Now, another big subject that is normally not very important is that of business and stock markets. Now, this is something which students tend to get confused because they think that this sounds like a very important a very important subject by itself. So this is something which you should know about. But you don't really necessarily need to know about it. Business and stock markets are normally out of the scope of, say, CLAT questions, unless again there's something really, really big or something of national significance that's happening there. So how the stock market's going up and down, how Sensex is doing, etc., is not necessarily very important to you, and these are things which you can ignore, right? So now you know what the important stuff are, what the important things are and the unimportant things are. Now moving on to how to split your time in that 1 hour that you have assigned for yourself every single day while reading the newspaper, right? So normally what I would suggest you to do is that in the 1 hour that you have, use the first 15 minutes of that 1 hour to read up on all the important things that you need to do that I've just spoken about, like the editorial columns, the opinion columns, any kind of legal news, any international political standoffs, any national issues that have come up recently, any kind of governmental policies, schemes, any other awards that have been presented, etc., etc. Right? So all of these are important things, and you need to spend the bulk of your time reading up on these kinds of articles from the newspaper, being able to identify them, taking notes about these articles, and making sure that while you're reading it as well, you're picking out the different vocabulary that is being used, which you're not familiar with. So 15 minutes of your time needs to be spent in doing this. Now, the last 10 minutes that you have is something which is your own time. Now, the reason why I ask you to do this is because I want you to make this an enjoyable experience for you. Because if you're just reading constantly very heavy news articles, which are important on like political spheres, legal spheres, and like any kind of like editorial and opinion columns, it can get a little tiring. And these 10 minutes is for you to refresh yourself and to be able to read up on things that you are personally attracted to. Like I'm sure a lot of you would like reading up sports articles. I'm sure a lot of you would like reading about movie reviews, and will have like lifestyle pages as well, where you enjoy reading those things. Now, the reason why I tell you to do this in those 10 minutes is because if you make it enjoyable to yourself, this will be a task which you will be looking forward to and you will make yourself do every single day, right? And the reason why you should be doing this with the good newspapers, that is the Hindu and the Indian Express that I've just suggested, is that even in the sports columns, the Hindu normally has very good write-ups on the sporting events that have happened in the recent past. So those might not be completely relevant to you with regard to current affairs in CLAT, but they still have a lot of relevance for you with regard to your English skills, your reading skills, and your vocabulary. So even when you're reading those 10 minutes for yourself, just for your leisure, just for your, like, just to pass your time or to have fun, even that is going to give you some kind of benefit in being able to understand and be able to read a lot more new content, which is normally written a lot more in like a little bit of a complex manner, which helps you improve your reading skills. So this 50-10 split in this 1 hour period that you've set aside for yourself is going to be really helpful for you in motivating yourself to do it again tomorrow. And then at the same time, getting the most out of the reading that you need to do and getting the most important information that is necessary for the GK section in CLAT, right? So this 50-10 split can be used by you, or if you think you have any other better mechanisms which work for you, then well and good. But make sure you do focus on the important stuff that I've just highlighted, because that is going to play a huge role in how well you're going to be doing in CLAT. Because as you know, the current affairs section, the GK section, is a huge part of CLAT, and that can make or break you getting into a good law school, right? So keep that in mind. And one final thing I would like to say with regard to current affairs and the newspaper in general is that it is a practice which needs to be inculcated in you. It needs to be done every single day so that after a month, it becomes natural to you that as soon as you wake up, you're like, okay, let's see what's there in the newspaper today. So this is something which will come only by habit and only with practice. So make sure in the first few days when you are making yourself and forcing yourself to do it, try and motivate yourself to do it in a way that's conducive to you. Do it at a time when you are most fresh with your mind, and do it in a place where you're comfortable and you're reading with like good lighting and like no disturbances, right? Because this is an active preparation that you are doing for CLAT every single day. And the thing is, sometimes it might feel like a futile effort because not everything that you read in the newspaper is going to come in CLAT. There's only a limited number of questions that can come in CLAT with regard to current affairs and GK. So at times it can seem like you are doing things which are not so important, which are not very relevant to you. But trust me, it could potentially be one of those things that you read that day could potentially be one of those questions that change which law school you're going to get into. So remember, this is an essential part. And like I told you, it's not just about your current affairs and GK sections. It's also about improving your reading skills, which is going to help you throughout CLAT and all the other sections as well. Right? And in conclusion, please do follow us on Instagram. We're going to give you new selections every day from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So please do follow SRIRAM Law Academy's Instagram page to get the notifications and get your daily notifications and daily news. If you did enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe to the SRIRAM Law Academy's YouTube channel for more such content. And with that, this is me, Kaushik, signing off.